It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin with the statement, "It's a work in progress." That's how President Bola Tinubu described efforts to promote unity in a diverse nation like Nigeria. This was at the inauguration of Pope Leo XIV at the Vatican. President Tinubu said he was honored to witness the historic occasion and pledged continued work towards national cohesion, not just for Nigeria, but for the African continent. State House correspondent Adesua Omoruwan reports.
It's a day of solemn ceremony in the heart of the Vatican. The inauguration of Pope Leo XIV, the 267th Bishop of Rome. Among the world leaders invited to witness this historic moment, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, a Muslim leader from one of the world's most religiously diverse nations. The president touched down in Rome Saturday and was welcomed by Vatican officials and Nigerian diplomats. Hours later, he was hosted to a private dinner by the Vatican. In the message posted on his official X handle, President Tinubu described the meeting as a fraternal exchange centered on peace, mutual respect, and global solidarity. This visit follows a personal invitation from the new Pope, who once worked in the Apostolic Nunciature in Lagos during the 1980s and says the country holds a special place in his heart. Today, for President Tinubu, who has spoken often about unity in diversity, this was more than a ceremonial attendance. It was a gesture of Nigeria's religious diplomacy on the global stage. A warm handshake between the Nigerian leader and the new pontiff. A moment of symbolic interfaith connection.
It's consistent and the true sense of unity in diversity. And I'm greatly honored. We have to continue to work on it. It's a work in progress for the sake of our country and the continent as a whole.
Nigeria is no stranger to religious complexity, home to millions of Christians and Muslims who often live side by side. Tinubu's presence at the Vatican underlines the country's delicate religious balance and the role leaders play in bridging divides.
It's very, very symbolic and indicative of the great solidarity that he continues to show, not just to the Muslim community, but to the entire Christian community. He has shown this solidarity with the millions of people who are of the Catholic faith in Nigeria by attending this Mass, being himself a Muslim. This has also shown his commitment to the advancement of peace, not just in the African region, but globally also.
He's a man who's tolerant of all religions and who believes in interfaith harmony, and who has even demonstrated it by the kind of appointments he made. I read somewhere that the president has made over, out of his cabinet, 62% of them are Christians. That shows the kind of man he is.
Shows the fact that a Muslim president can be accepted and is liberal to carry the whole country along. So he represents not only the Muslim faith, but also Christians in Nigeria. And it changes the perception that Nigeria has this, everlasting sectarian conflict between Christian and Muslim.
After the Mass, President Tinubu met with Nigerian Catholic bishops in his entourage, urging that the country's diversity be used not for adversity, but for prosperity, while calling on leaders at all levels to work for the good of the people.
If we are to use that diversity, not for adversity at all, but for
prosperity for the country. It's historic for one to be on the saddle of presidency and for this to happen.
We are grateful, and I've already written to thank you for facilitating our coming for the funeral of Pope Francis. So now that you have come to the Vatican, so whenever we are having a conference in Nigeria, we'll also invite you, and we look forward to interfacing with you, just as you're able to do with the Holy Father.
Meanwhile, the inauguration mass also saw a rare moment. For the first time since Nigeria's fiercely contested 2023 elections, President Tinubu was seen publicly engaging with his former opponent and one of his fiercest political critics, Peter Obi of the Labour Party. The two, joined by former governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, shared light-hearted pleasantries. In the age of deepening global divides, President Tinubu's presence here signals not just diplomatic courtesy, but an assertion shared by the 267th Pope that faith can be a bridge, not a barrier. Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
All right, Rufai, like you were saying, President looking dapper in
my
a suit,
president is looking
fresh.
dapper, looking lovely. He's looking in that suit. If you see my president in his shoe and he went to the Pope like this and he shook hands with him, you know, and it's a very good one. And it's a very good. Our doctor is here, you know. Doctor will jam me across everywhere, the celebration over the weekend, and doctor is here. So, like I was saying, Vimbai, what else can I say? And you see, everything my president says is spot on. Like I said, seriously now, we made our voices heard because we wanted fairness in the 2023 elections. As regards Muslim or non-Muslim ticket, I just hope when it will be the time for Christian tickets, a lot of people will not quibble because a Muslim ticket has sailed through. But President Tinubu, I want to say emphatically, like I said, has no bigotry element in him, no religious bigotry element in him. We might disagree on many things, but that I can tell you. And he showed it. Leading the delegation. That's why when he was telling Peter Obi, he said, you are on the Nigeria's delegation. I'm the head of the Nigeria's delegation here. And he went out there. He had a good showing. Liaised, you know, with the Catholic leaders. And definitely, if they invite him, if he has the time, definitely he will go. So it's a good showing for Nigeria in general out there. But let's not also lose the grand message that Pope Leo did give. And if you look at the former Pope Leo, he came at a time where the world was emerging. Ideologies were changing. Workers' rights were the order of the day in the 1900s. It's the day of AI. Workers' rights are on the front burner. Elton John currently has a case with the British government, in fact, as regards AI and royalties and rights. There are many things happening in the world today. And the Pope is saying we must look at the downtrodden in society. He's calling for unity. Unity at a time where Israel is now saying that we're going to pound Gaza full on. They're starting another operation. Who is speaking for them? Pope Francis used to call Christian brethren in that region every night till he passed. We're talking about unity, Ukraine and Russia. I'm happy also, J.D. Vance, many miracles have happened, you know, since this incident. Peter Obi, you know, meeting President Tinubu and having a light-hearted conversation. J.D. Vance also meeting Zelensky because, you know, they were very adversarial towards each other at the White House. So a lot has happened at a time like this. He also reached out to the unity of the church, which is very important because let's not deceive ourselves. All parts were very torturous at this point in time, leading up to these elections. The very conservative side and the liberal side. And that's why a lot of people feel this Pope is a balance. It's also quite sad that we didn't see some big hitters there, people like Joe Biden. And that's why I say, get well soon, Joe Biden. That's just been diagnosed with a very aggressive, you know, form of cancer. We just pray of prostate cancer. We pray he gets well soon. But all in all, it was a good celebration. And the Pope came on his Pope Mobile, said hello to a lot of people. Was given the fisherman's ring yesterday, which was a sign, symbol of authority. You can see a lot of people kissing the ring. But it was a good outing for President Tinubu.
Okay, let's start from here. Yesterday, the papacy of Leo XIV began. And we had the inauguration at St. Peter's Square at the Vatican City. About 200 world leaders were present, including royalty. And then he gave his inaugural mass. I don't want to say speech. You know, they call it mass in the Catholic Church. All the areas were, you know, populated. Up to about 250,000 persons in attendance from different parts of the world. And the people from the United States and Peru claiming him, waving the Peruvian and the American flag. The first Augustinian Pope to emerge. The Augustinians, they are in 147 countries of the world where they have, you know, the Augustinians. They are very close to the Iglesians, the Jesuits, otherwise known as the Jesuits, in terms of what they preach. Peace, love, unity, you know, defending the poor. And the Pope at his inauguration was very consistent in this regard. He was talking about peace, justice, love, unity in very flawless Italian, you know, when he spoke. You know, he speaks about 5 different languages, and he has working knowledge of Greek and also, you know, other languages. So it was a very symbolic moment where the Pope took the fisherman's ring, reminding us of the fact that he's the Bishop of Rome, sitting on the throne of St. Peter, who was originally a fisherman. And also the pallium, which is the robe, the woolen robe, you know, that shows him up as a shepherd. So you have a fisherman fishing for men after the fashion of the first bishop of Rome, and also a shepherd who is going to lead his flock of 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide. And it was just as well that he spoke about the fact that his own papacy is not going to be autocratic. It's not going to be a papacy that will be promoting propaganda. It will be a papacy that will work for the interest of the poor. When Pope Leo the 13th ascended that throne, it was at the turn of the century, the 19th century, where the working class became the major concern. Now, in 2025, this Pope is talking about artificial intelligence and how that is going to change the world of work. And hence, he patterned his papacy after the example of Pope Leo the 13th in terms of the interest of the poor. Now, another thing that he said yesterday was about peace in the world. Peace in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, peace in Ukraine, peace in the Middle East, peace in every part of the world. And, you know, one of the world leaders that he met on the sidelines was President Zelensky of Ukraine, underlining this issue about peace. So we congratulate the Catholic community worldwide now that this papacy has begun. He made a point that, you know, he's going to sustain the legacy of Pope Francis. And I think that the world will be interested in how that plays out. There are issues about the future of the church, the ordination of women, LGBTQ plus rights, and so many other issues, you know, sexual abuses of minors within the church. The church is at a turning point of transformation. So congratulations to Pope Leo the 14th. But I think the part of it that we should also talk about very quickly is the Nigerian participation there. I think it was, you know, very exciting for Nigerian Catholics and for all of us that President Tinubu was one of the leaders selected from Africa. Gabon was there, Togo was there, Morocco was there, Nigeria was also there. Well, they didn't invite Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe was not there.
Our vice president was there.
Oh, your vice president?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Maybe as a spectator. But our president was there. Zimbabwe didn't show up on the list. Maybe your vice president is a Catholic. But in any case, we are excited that President Tinubu, was there, was invited, and he's a liberal. People should note the point that his wife is a pastor of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, the RCCG. That's Senator Remi Tinubu. So this is a man who used that occasion to talk about tolerance, unity in diversity, interfaith dialogue, and the fact that, look, in Nigeria, he says, that his administration is committed to promoting religious tolerance. Section 42 of the Nigerian Constitution talks about the fact that nobody can be discriminated against as a result of religion or place of birth or orientation and all of that. And I think that it was good to see President Tinubu there. He had dinner with the Secretary of State at the Vatican City. He was at the event. In fact, he was given front row seat, which means that the point I made earlier, that this Pope has very strong Nigerian connections. He's been here like 19 times, within the last decade, relating with the Augustinian community. And yesterday, when I interviewed Sir Tony Chiejina, who is a Knight of St. Mulumba, he made a point that, in fact, we should not be surprised if Pope Leo XIV visits Nigeria during this period of Tinubu's presidency. I think we are all excited, but the other part of it is the fact that the president went with the Catholic bishops of Nigeria, Archbishop Ignatius Kaigama, Archbishop of Owerri, Archbishop Ugoji, Archbishop Alfred Martins of Lagos, and the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, Bishop Matthew Hazan Kuka. They were part of that delegation. It was good optics. Now, the other part of it is the sartorial elegance of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It was quite interesting to see him wearing a suit. And I said, well, what do they say? When you are in Rome, you do like the Romans. Other presidents were also dressed, most of them, in suits. But I like the fact that President Tinubu was looking very smart in a suit. Maybe you should wear suits more often. The feel, the look of the suit was so nice. And instead of all these billowy garments.
That's our culture. That's our culture.
I know it's our culture, but we will occasionally like to see President Tinubu more.
Suit and tie is not our culture.
Looking like, no, let him. No, this is a work. He was a corporate executive at ExxonMobil. Yeah, he can look corporate because the job of Nigeria is like managing a corporate establishment. In fact, I was recommending yesterday that President Tinubu should wear bow ties.
Bow ties.
Also wear bow ties. But in any case, all that amity with Peter Obi and Fayemi, I think, looked nice.
Yeah.
All right, very, very well said. I think we've really celebrated the look. It was appropriate for the outing. It was befitting. It was statesmanly. And I think not just Nigerians, all Africans were proud when we saw him. Yes, we love to see him in his agbada and so forth. But the diversity, which pinpoints his message yesterday around diversity and the fact that our diversity, especially here in Nigeria, is still a work in progress. And this is also echoed in the homily that was delivered by Pope Leo XIV, a message about unity. For me, when I started thinking about the topics of diversity and unity in Nigeria, sometimes one can become a little bit disheartened, especially in this era of social media, when you read the various takes and the various insults, the amount of animosity that is often created between various groups. It's unfortunate. But can it be a gift for Nigeria? How can we use our diversity to strengthen us to move forward? I mean, with over 300 tribes, over a population of 200 million people, ethnic groups, and over 200 million population, one asks, how can all of these different strings and chords be brought together? And I thought that was what was quite poignant from the message of Pope Leo XIV, which is that he said, well, it's not about all the propaganda around religion, no matter what the religion is. It's just about love. It's about finding a level playing field. It's about meeting each other halfway. So I went back into history because I really wanted to understand, is it that Africa is the only continent on earth that has had tribes or ethnic groups and differences in religion? No, go all the way back to the Middle Ages. You had the Saxons, you had the Burgundies, you had the Vikings, there were tribal divisions as well in the Middle Ages in Europe of that time. But what did they do? They were able to downplay it and focus on a national identity. And for me, this is the major takeaway, is how can we begin to celebrate our diversity while focusing on a national identity that can move us forward? A unified national agenda where we all know that ultimately, yes, our diversity is very critical to who we are and our national identity. However, Project Nigeria is still number one when it all comes down to it. And you look at some of the events that took place as well. It has been a couple of weeks of, seeing various political dynamics playing out at the Vatican. Of course, we know that in the tenure of Pope Francis, the papacy became a little bit more visible about their role as a head of state. This has happened in the past, but in a more subtle way. But with Pope Francis, we saw him address the G7 summit. We even saw him visit South Sudan and kiss the feet of the leaders as he was trying to broker a peace deal. And this is a theme that looks to be continued by Pope Leo XIV. Of course, he's already had a meeting with Zelensky because at the moment, the wars in Russia and Ukraine, Gaza, those are currently leading in the front burner. I would have liked to see more engagement with other people, but I believe that will come. I read an article this morning saying that J.D. Vance is also scheduled to have a quick meeting with the Pope as well this morning. But I think there's a big conversation to be had around what the head of state of the Vatican, the Pope, what role he can play as a spiritual leader who does not discriminate, who embraces and loves all and lives those various values, and how those can be disseminated around the world in countries like Nigeria, where he has a love and an endearment towards. How can we bring him in and use this time of being so close to the papacy to foster our own national unity and drive our own agenda forward? I think that's a critical part of the conversation for me. I hope to see President Tinubu in more suits and ties as well.